call upon, the reverse order, Bob Jaspan. As I was saying a minute ago, I have always supported rent control, and I will continue to support rent control, but it's most important that we have a fair and equitable that we could work with. And what we came up with was not fair. At first, I thought it was the best that we could put together. I thought it was the best that City Council could do. Twice, thank you. But after many comments, much input from tenants, listening to their concerns, by the sliding scale rent control, we were putting a burden on the people that could least afford it. We were taking a person that was paying $300 a month and allowing the landlord to raise it 5%. It was only 4%, but we're going to allow a 5% increase. So you take a small amount, 5% of $300 is $15. And then it boiled down to an apartment with $750. We're going to allow a 1%. 1%, $7.50. The person in that $300 apartment is in that $300 apartment because that's all they could afford. And that's why I sustained the veto. The veto allowed us to look further. My suggestion was to form a committee of tenants, of property owners, and of City Council. Last week in the newspaper, there was an article from New York City that passed a rent control. After 1 year of negotiating, of talking with tenants, they came up with a rent control. City Council, we did not have that. Next, I'll call upon Councilman Chris Bollwage. Chris, same question.
When we talk about proven records and we speak publicly on rent control and how you favor it, I've served in the City Council for 10 years, have spoken favorably on rent control for those 10 years, have debated the issue, have not waffled on the issue, have not said on Monday what I would do and then change my mind on Tuesday, change it back again on Thursday, and then change it again the following Friday. That hasn't happened in my tenure on City Council, nor would it happen in my tenure as mayor of the City of Elizabeth. City Council has an active legislative role in rent control. City Council has debated rent control for months. It makes it sound like it was just brought up one day. We've been discussing this since January. And then when we come up with an ordinance and we vote in favor of it, and then we change our minds, it doesn't show leadership. The question here is, the mayor's veto effectively ended rent control on June 1st. June 1st, rent control could expire in the City of Elizabeth. That's a fact. People who voted to sustain the mayor's veto may also be subject to killing rent control in the City of Elizabeth as of June 1st. If you are strongly in favor of rent control, then you have to debate the issue and then vote in favor or negative when that issue is before you. I have strongly supported rent control. The issue was before us, and we supported it, and we passed an ordinance, and then it was vetoed by the mayor. In introducing the measure to override the mayor's veto and then discussing it, it failed. And on June 1st, if rent control is over in the City of Elizabeth, my two opponents should take the blame.
And third, the Republican candidate, Jim Dembeck.
No matter what you say, that a group of tenants be taken one way, and the same thing you might say to a group of homeowners taken another. 5% any way you go. No doubt rent control is needed. No doubt rent control should not have been debated in an election year. No doubt that certain people should not have tried to push an unfair rent control ordinance through. I think in this instance, there's not one person on City Council, the mayor, inclusive of myself, that doesn't feel rent control is required and needed. But I think it should be put off the way it was done. I hear yesterday that the ordinance that we had will last until December 31st, at which time I'm hoping, and if it were my administration, a select committee would be formed to come up with an equitable plan for all tenants and homeowners. Because I don't care what man that's running for mayor represents himself. He must, if he's got worth anything at all, protect the homeowner, the tenant, and the businessman. He's the mayor of all the citizens. And you know as well as I, there are many inequities in this town in rentals due to rent control over the past, on both pros and cons. Certainly, the businessman that is invested and owns a house or an apartment must get a fair return. Too many times we have found where the fair return was not allowed, we lost ratables.
Thank you, Jim. I'm sure as the candidates now realize when they feel me breathing on them, that means their time is up, and I will do just that. I'll come up beside them and try to be as innocuous as possible, even though that's not really my character, but I'll try to do it gently. Anyway, the second question, I believe, since all three have indicated a preference for rent control, is somewhat can be somewhat shortened. At any rate, the question is as follows. Do you believe the rent control is a reason for increased tax appeals? And regardless of your answer to that question, are you in favor of the continuation of rent control in spite of the efforts by some people to use rent control and tax appeals to create a real division between tenants and homeowners who live in our community? And please explain your answer. We'll again reverse the order and
In the middle of the thing?
no, I'll switch to Democrats. First we'll call upon Jim Dembeck.
For many years, I was a homeowner in the city. 30 years. In fact, I'm still a homeowner in respect, but now I'm a tenant. So I can speak pretty well from both sides of the book. In my last answer, I said, certainly, I think rent control is required. I would like to see where Elizabeth get back to 100% utilization of the apartments. We're far below that now. I believe good administration, where people come to Elizabeth, rents will seek their own level. Sometimes, as we're seeing now, with a large vacancy rate, I believe some rents will come down. But I wouldn't take that as a chance to negate what rent control does. And I'm certain that we need it. I'm positive that there are people that take advantage of it for tax appeals. But you know, everybody's got a cross, and everybody's got something to do. And everybody is a money man, wants to make money. There has to be a fair, in-between, middle-of-the-road ordinance that is fair to the property owners and fair to the tenants. And if anybody in this panel says anything different, they're only saying it because they want saying what you want to hear. This is a business. This is a city that must be run successfully, and it must be run with fairness to tenants and homeowners alike.
Thank you, Jim. Just to let you know, we've had another one of the mayoral candidates arrive. That's Mr. Salaam Ismail, who will be called upon to answer the questions as they come up in the same order as indicated. The next, we'll have Chris Bollwage. Chris?
Tax appeals, rent control, and homeowners. There is no correlation between homeowners and rent control for increased tax appeals. Increased tax appeals have been caused in Union County $1.5 billion of loss of property valuation, building slump, a non-existent national domestic policy, a lack of investment by developers. They are the reasons for tax appeals. Tax appeals are not caused due to the fact of rent control. Rent control in non-rent control communities as compared to rent control communities up and down the state have the same amount of tax appeals. Homeowners do not feel an increased property tax because of rent control. And anybody who attempts to tell you that, I ask them to support that in written documentation. I would ask them to support that in written studies, or I would ask them to support that with some kind of correlation. No one can do that. They will tell you that it exists, but no one can show you the written documentation. I'm here to tell you that there is none. That the tax appeals are caused by greedy developers who seek an effort in order to develop additional money for their own pockets. The Vista Hotel has recently applied from a $7.5 million assessment in the city of Elizabeth to a $3.2 million assessment, a loss of $3.5 million in tax rates. That causes a shift to the property tax owners, not rent control.
Thank you, Chris. Bob Jaspan.
One of the questions I asked when rent control came before City Council, I asked that the city tax assessor give us some information. My colleague, Councilman Bollwage, no, we don't need it. We don't have to look at it. He knows. He doesn't have to have any information from the tax assessor. So the letter was sent to Mr. LaQualia from myself through City Council. And when the information came back, the information was so important that the city clerk gave that information to all of my colleagues. And it showed that the tax appeals last year, the refund to property owners were almost $1 million. With a weak rent control, we're going to give the landlords, the property owners, a reason to go in for their tax appeals. And when the $1 million is refunded, who is going to pick up the burden? The individual property owner, whether it's a one-family or two-family, or even the small investor that owns a 3-, and 4-, and 6-family house. So yes, tax appeals do cause a problem. We have I think we came a long way with rent control. In 1974, the allowable increase was 11%. In 1979, it was 11.5. Now that was with surcharges that the property owners were able to pass on. 1980, 13.5%. That was the 3.5% plus surcharges. 1981, it was 10.2. 1982, it was 6%. Today, we're down to 4%. I think we came a long ways with the property owners. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I'll now call upon Mr. Salaam Ismail, who will hopefully introduce himself himself as well.
First of all, I'd like to apologize for being late. I had another occasion to attend. It seems as though every time these forums come up, I'm in between 2 or 3 other events. However, first of all, since I missed the first question, I'd like to combine them both. Rent control have always been an issue of mine, dating back when I was a part of an organization called the Coalition of United Elizabeth, which one of the organizations that was pushing that whole issue of rent control back in the 80s, which brought it to 4% back in 1982. And I have always been one who spoke out on that because I believe that you, the tenants, deserve a fair shake. Sometimes the administration tend to leave out the people and deal with the big money spenders, like the property owners and the developers and what have you, and forget about the existence of the tenants and the people in the city. I do believe that this whole issue this year involving rent control was not thought out. I don't think the city council, the mayor, any of them done their homework. I believe they didn't give you an opportunity to sit down with them, with the property owner, and come up with a fair, worked out plan that will benefit you, the people. And that continues to happen. This whole issue of tax appeals and rent control, what correlates one, what the issue is what is beneficial to the people that is there every day, working hard to pay their rent. Is it affordable? Is it feasible? Is it right? That is the issue, and that's what I'm here to deal with. Cut out all the politics, cut out all the rhetoric. Let's get down to the grassroots understanding of what we're here today for. We're here to get fair rent control for the tenants, you, the tenants, and that's what I'm here for. Thank you.
Thank you, Salaam. The third question.